Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're basically putting on our detective hats to investigate a really critical HR metric, and that is the talent drain. Look, if you've ever stared at your company's departure numbers and felt this sudden, sinking sense of dread, you are absolutely not alone. Especially when you realize turnover cost companies roughly $1 trillion annually in the US alone. But today, we're going to transform that blind dread into a targeted, actionable investigation. We're going to learn how to look at this data in a completely different way. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's the core mystery we really need to solve together today. Do you actually know where your organization's talent is draining? You know how it goes. That single sheet of paper with a general turnover percentage circulates at the end of the quarter, and what happens next? Blind panic! It's kind of comical, really. It's exactly like knowing your ship is sinking, but having absolutely no idea which part of the hull is actually compromised. Sure, that big general number tells you a problem exists, but it offers absolutely zero real answers on how to patch the hole. Naturally, when we begin our analysis, we do always have to start with the macro view, right? The baseline, the total attrition of the organization. This is your starting point. It's a general temperature check for the company's health. But, and this is a big but, this blurry high-level number simply isn't enough to diagnose the real problem. I mean, it treats every single departure as the exact same event, whether you just lost a junior administrative assistant or your lead systems architect. It's just a raw number, completely stripped of any real context. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact shift in mindset we need to make here. On one side, we've got that vague, monolithic, total attrition of organization. On the other side, we have our data categorized by skills. We are literally moving our analysis from a blunt instrument to a highly precise surgical tool. Taking this diagnostic approach, actually grouping your data by specific employee skills, it completely changes how you view your workforce, and more importantly, where you allocate your attention efforts. Let's clearly unpack what we're actually analyzing here straight from our source material. The definition is, honestly, elegant in its simplicity. Skill-wise attrition. To know the attrition of employees having particular skills. I want you to mentally position this as your ultimate detective's tool. With this specific lens, you're no longer just counting the total number of heads walking out the front door. Instead, you're identifying exactly which vital capabilities your company's losing. Like, are you losing all your bilingual customer support staff? Your top-tier cloud engineers? This one simple definition grounds our entire investigation. So the crucial point is right here. Which skill had highest drain of my talent? Actually, I want you to just let that sink in for a second. The exact moment you stop asking how many people left and start asking which skill had the highest drain, your entire perspective shifts. You go from reactive panic to proactive strategy. You aren't just losing generic employees anymore. You're pinpointing a specific, targeted leak in your organization's operational capability. It's a total game changer. This single question totally rewires how you have to approach HR analytics. All right, so now that we understand the emotional weight and the absolute strategic importance of pinpointing that talent drain, we need to transition our narrative. We've got to move to the calm, rational, mathematical solution required to actually measure it. We need to open up our detective's toolkit. Because let's be real, we cannot rely on gut feelings or broad assumptions about who is leaving. And we definitely can't rely on hallway gossip. We need a definitive, objective metric to calculate the skill-wise drain accurately. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we can boil our entire complex investigation down to one simple, incredibly powerful mathematical concept, the ratio. By isolating the specific attrition ratio for a particular skill, so comparing the number of people who left with that skill against the total pool of employees you have who actually possess that skill, you generate hard, undeniable data. This ratio is exactly what you need to answer our core question. To put it into perspective, it proves mathematically whether losing 2 highly specialized data scientists is actually a much more severe organizational drain than losing, say, 15 general sales representatives. Let's move on and see how this builds, because, a single ratio calculated in a vacuum is really just a snapshot of a single moment in time. To truly utilize this toolkit, you have to track this skill-wise attrition ratio on a strict cadence, monthly, quarterly, yearly. By stringing together this tracking cadence and monitoring the ratio across time, you establish really clear historical patterns. And this is exactly how you catch a sudden, alarming spike in the drain of a critical skill months before it blows into a full-blown organizational crisis. Well, that brings us to our final, provocative thought for today's explainer. Are you prepared to find out where your specific talent drain actually is? Look, it's one thing to nod along in a board meeting because you know your overall turnover percentage, but it takes a completely different level of strategic focus to really dig into the data and investigate your skill-wise attrition. I highly encourage you to take this framework, apply these ratios, and go investigate your own teams immediately. Stop guessing and start measuring exactly what capabilities are walking out your door. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep learning.